Everybody focuses on price in a negotiation, but they are missing the one key that gets more deals done than literally anything else. So I figured, why not share the one question that will help you get more deals done? And I don't care if you're a real estate agent, a buyer, a seller, investor, or an entrepreneur, this applies to all walks of life. I was consulting on the sale of a multi-million dollar property once. They had bought a property and they were going to basically tear it down, rebuild on the foundation. They wanted to know what they should build on it. And one of my roles as an agent is to help people establish what would be something they could build that would sell relatively quickly. Now, I told them to keep it in that $1 to $2 million price point because nothing above that 2 million mark had really sold. 3 years later, they called me back and they had a $3 million property on their hands in one of the craziest real estate markets I had ever seen. Now, I brought a pile of people through this property. I ran the math, and the math said that it was probably worth somewhere between that 2.3 to 2.5 range. Some agents were even more pessimistic. They said like 1.7 to 1.9. But nobody knew what the real true market value of that property was. And I spoke to the sellers and they needed $3 million out of it. Otherwise, it may not have made sense for them to do a sale. And now, while I looked at the math and some other agents may have said I overpriced that property, I also sell a lot of unique properties. And there's one thing I learned selling unique properties that has held true for years. Price is only an objection in the absence of value. I've sold properties that people told me would never sell above 1.5 for 2.2. I've sold other properties that people said you'll never break 3 million and sold it well over that price point. And in this instance, there was really nothing like this property. It was one of the most unique I'd ever seen. So we put together a marketing plan. We rolled out the actual sale. We had a huge party. We had a ton of interest, a bunch of showings. And lo and behold, somebody lowballed us and gave us an offer in the mid two range. Presented the offer to my client, gave them all the options, and we countered it very close to asking price. Now, the interesting thing about this transaction is you would assume it would be dead. We were so far apart, and how on earth could you possibly bridge that gap? Well, I worked on the file with the buyer agent for about 6 months. He was watching the listing. I was sharing the activity. But as we started digging into what really mattered to the clients, we realized there were things about the sale that mattered to the client far beyond the actual price point. And because my sellers were contractors, we were able to do a lot of those things. Now, it did cost my sellers some money, but what mattered most to my sellers, it was actually achieving the target price. We ended up selling the property for almost 98% of list price because we asked this one question. We asked, aside from the price that you're actually paying, what else matters to your client in this transaction? And we spent about 4 or 5 months really putting together a deal that made everybody feel like they won in a transaction. If you can ask that question and you can find out what the definition of a win is for a buyer, you're going to be in a much better position to reverse engineer the deal. And that is the difference between being solutions driven versus just being an order taker.